So those who are just joining us, I'll go ahead and refresh, take a couple minutes. Thank you for your patience. So a couple public service ads I want to mention. Jim Thorpe Borough Council at 6:57 tonight did vote unanimously not to modify, I say again, not to modify the zoning out in the special district area, which parallels Mock Chunk Lake Park. That would be on the east side of Mock Chunk Lake Park and actually runs from the Summit Hill line in towards Jim Thorpe, the special district area along the Lens Trail there. The modification that was being proposed was to allow on-lot septic to within 1,000 feet, where it's currently restricted to a half a mile of Mock Chunk Creek. So fortunately, that will help hold back any development that would be utilizing on-lot septic along Mock Chunk Lake Park in the borough of Jim Thorpe and now Mock Chunk Creek. Important to this also is this morning, the Carbon County Commissioners, not knowing what direction the borough would go, did finalize an agreement with Ed Canick to buy about 47 acres of his property that was being planned for development to include on-lot septic if a zoning change took place. So we took the initiative, purchased that property from him for $238,000, just over 45 acres. So again, it's about protecting the watershed, right? The water that is a supply point for the borough of Jim Thorpe, protect the Class A fishery we have out there and the wonderful recreational area we have. So kudos to the borough of Jim Thorpe, their council for not making those changes, and of course to Carbon County for purchasing that property that will preclude development in the borough of Jim Thorpe parallel to Mock Chunk Lake Park. I want to make a note that the county offices tomorrow in the administration building will be closed all day so that we can do further water mitigation, because 2 nights ago we had the issue where a broken water line went from the 3rd floor. That water went all the way down to the 1st floor. So in order to ensure the workers have free access and to protect the health of the employees while they're doing further mitigation, such as maybe cutting into drywall and doing all their testing, continued drying and things of dehumidifying, things of that nature, the building will be closed for county business. So recorder of deeds, tax assessment, tax claim, GIS, human relations, the treasurer's office, the controller's office, which includes fiscal data. The commissioner's office will be skeleton manning. I expect it'll probably be the chief clerk and the 3 commissioners there tomorrow. So not a lot of activity at all in the annex building. So again, if you have something that has to be done in any of the offices I mentioned, you expect to have to get it done next week, and we apologize for the inconvenience, if any, that it might cause. I also want to mention there'll be parking restrictions up in the upper lot that's behind the administration or annex building for those who might come in for a meeting with the commissioners and such. We had to really reduce the number of accessible slots, meaning extra slots for visitors who are coming into the commissioner's office or some of the contractors that would come in due to getting ready to commence HVAC and roof replacement project on the administration building. That'll probably run through June also. So appreciate your patience as we work through that. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into Carbon Matters. We have all the technical issues, I think, resolved for now. As I was saying when we first started, I'm using an open broadcast system here to kind of help me with some of the technology side of this. So appreciate your patience. Feel free to comment into the comments or you can always give me a call or email me. The numbers posted, 570-503-6780 is my cell phone. Or you can call the office at 325-3611, clukasevich@carboncounty.net. So let's go ahead, let's get started and start dealing into those carbon matters, the goings on, and then we'll talk about the primary race coming up in May. All right, so we always like to kind of start on the light side, and I am going to do that. Even last year, I was really optimistic and hopeful that the Lansford pool would finally be open. I saw a recent article in the Times News saying that there is a position that the actual study that took place was flawed, and therefore we're going to see another significant delay, I expect, in any renovation and future opening of the Lansford pool. You know, as far as I'm concerned, we can't have enough public pools in Carbon County. I wish every borough had one, every municipality had one that was able to maintain it. Obviously, one of the big challenges that we'll always have, or at least recently, are lifeguards, be it Lehighton, Palmerton, up in Weatherly, Mock Chunk Lake Park. It's getting tougher and tougher every year to retain lifeguards and to retain them through the entirety of the season. Out at Mock Chunk Lake Park, out of 101 days of summer last year, we had 29 days where we didn't have at least 2 lifeguards on duty. And when we don't have at least 2 lifeguards on duty at Mock Chunk Lake Park, we can't charge. I was also hoping when it comes to the Lansford pool to actually develop a collaborative arrangement in that our lifeguards, with appropriate levels of training, cross-fertilization of skills, because it is different from operating in a pool and you know, more or less open water on a lake where you can't see the bottom. Would have loved to seen a cooperation where we could exchange lifeguards or give lifeguards from either Mock Chunk Lake Park or Lansford extra hours by either working up at Lansford on their days off or working down at Mock Chunk Lake Park. But it looks like that collaborative possibility is going to be delayed a bit. Turning a little bit to economic development. There's recently a couple, just within the last month and a half, 2 months ago, I did see a Reading Northern Blue Mountain Railroad announcing significant increases in train excursionists coming into Carbon County, specifically into the county seat from Jim Thorpe. And most recently, they announced, Andy Muller and the railroad announced, they're going to be bringing in regular trains from Pittston. We already have them from the Reading Outer Station, things of that nature. So more and more coming into Carbon County. And obviously, the more folks we're bringing in by train helps reduce some of the parking congestion. Look, we're never going to have enough parking, I believe, but nonetheless, folks maybe coming from New York, New Jersey, they simply get on the train in Pittston, come on down, spend 3, 4, 5 hours in Jim Thorpe, and head on back. So kudos to Reading and Northern Railroad for their continued investment in Carbon County economy. I will tell you, since the county has sold the railroad, Andy Muller has invested over $10 million in what is the Carbon County portion of the railroad, and that is help feeding tourism here, and no doubt it'll help his other railroad related businesses such as freight, moving fracking sand, things of that nature also. But we are benefiting from that. He's already finished one crossing down by the pedestrian bridge on the DNL. He'll be getting ready to do a major crossing improvement right there at the county lot. And Andy is also if you see down by the post office, or now that smoke shop, Bear Junction, or whatever it is there, he's doing the sidewalks that come down off the 903 bridge. That's all being done by Andy. And all those 3 projects that I mentioned are a result of the fact that we sold the railroad, and that's part of that in-kind payment. Of the $4.7 million, 1.7 was in kind. He's already up to $10 million in improvement. So pretty great return on our investment, and the number of tourists coming in by train just continues to grow by leaps and bounds. And I suspect, we're going to be seeing trains coming into Jim Thorpe 365 days a year. All right. We see. I want to go into kind of the green screen now, and I want to talk a little bit about blight. We have Abby from Nesquehoning Borough Council, who has been taking up the lead in bringing blight to the attention of everyone in the county, bringing the municipalities together on a regular basis, not simply to have a conversation, but to develop an overarching plan. Nesquehoning themselves do have a blight plan in place. Abby is bringing together in regular meetings the stakeholders who have a reason, which is all of us really, to fight blight, mitigate blight, demolish those homes that are blight, and then also significant is help those who maybe necessarily, like senior citizens who can't necessarily afford the investments are necessary to upkeep their homes before they deteriorate to the point of needing demolition. Taking this holistic approach to blight mitigation, right? It's about preventing it. Now, obviously, we have homes in Lansford, Nesquehoning, Jim Thorpe, and unfortunately half of doubles that have to be demolished, but we will be able, in some instances, to save the other halves that at times are already habitable. So I want to send out my kudos to Abby and those communities. I've seen Palmerton, Lansford, Nesquehoning, Summit Hill, Jim Thorpe, at least those 5 I've seen. They met with the Council of Governments. They were present at a commissioners meeting asking us to enact a $15 fee on any recorded deeds to go towards blight mitigation. Also, the whole home repair program, the county has about $1.05 million, just over $1 million of a grant we were provided. Myself and the planning director had a discussion this afternoon. Our application, and really it's our project scope, is complete. We have a couple little tweaks we have to make, but the grant's already been approved. We're just refining our scope a little bit, with the exception of about $25,000 that will be focused on incumbent training and CCTI, some small investments in CCTI programs, Carbon County Technical Institute. Incumbent training is a workforce development program that provides money so that trades such as HVAC, plumbing, electrical, construction, stud construction, things of that nature, they could go and do retraining or advanced training. And this is all focused on increasing home habitability, right? We're going to make an investment in that. But other than that, $25,000 and 4% administration fee that will be used by the county to pay staff who work on these projects, you're going to see about $1 million going into projects throughout the county. And we're going to focus the majority of those funds on really preventing the deterioration of homes in Carbon County. We don't want to get them to the point of having to demolish them. And those will be grants to individuals, but what we're going to insist upon are really they funnel through the municipalities who have a blight plan, so we can assure as best as we can that we are addressing the most pressing blight or potential blight issues in each municipality. So again, kudos to Abby. We are working on that blight mitigation. Speaking of Nesquehoning, and I did mention that a second ago, with Abby and Borough Council up there, who has a solid blight plan, they're hiring their 5th police officer. And the reason I'm mentioning this is for the fact is I was talking to a gentleman from Nesquehoning about manning. They realize that they cannot run a police department with anything less than 5 officers. And it's pretty obvious, I think, to most when you think about it. It's because of the shift work, right? You're probably running 2 or 3 shifts a day. You have people who have to be on vacation. You have people who are going to be sick. So they realized that 4 police officers was not sufficient manning to cover 24/7 operations. So I want to give my congrats to Nesquehoning to recognizing the issue, coming up with a plan to resolve that issue, and investing the resources to help ensure a safer community in Nesquehoning. And kudos to the chief, also a relatively new chief up there, Michael Weaver. Congratulations for his continued growth of his department and putting the safety, health, and welfare of the citizens first and foremost on his agenda. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Veterans Matters. I want to thank Jennifer from the PA Department of Veterans Affairs, and then Christine Leclerc today. Christine Leclerc, who's our Director of Veterans Affairs, for all the work they've been doing to take a holistic approach to supporting veterans and their families here in Carbon County. There was a recent article on Carbon Veterans Outreach is growing, and there have been a significant number of engagements that have taken place in 2022 with the multitude of programs such as the Vietnam Veterans Coffee that has been started, the Veterans Dinner on Veterans Day, and a significant number of recurring events throughout the year. Together with veterans and our VA director has been able to engage with in excess of 1,200 veterans this past year. And put this in perspective, there's about 5,040 veterans in Carbon County. So this is pretty significant that about a fifth, if not more, of the veterans in Carbon County are having engagements, so they're more aware of the entitlements that they have earned, the services that are available to them and potentially their family members, spouses, as a result of their service to this nation. But I bring up Jennifer and Christine because today they had the opportunity to present to a nationwide committee, National Associations of Counties, Veterans and Military Services Committee, where they talked about Together with Veterans, which is really a program that focuses on veterans and mental health. And that ties into the Northeast Hub that was created in collaboration with St. Luke's down at the old Granada Hutton Hospital, where there's walk-in services provided. And right now, if I recall correctly, Christine is down there herself and really works out of there one day a week, helping connect veterans to services that they need. So kudos to all those, Angelo, Bonnie, Christine, our CVSOs, County Veteran Service Officers, and then Jennifer Stittler from PA DMVA, who has been working in Carbon County to bring services to our veterans population. If you're joining me a little bit late, I did just get done mentioning that at 6:57, the Jim Thorpe Borough Council voted not to change their zoning in the special district, which parallels Mock Chunk Lake Park, which included one large parcel, about 45 acres, owned by Ed and Regina Canican, which was under consideration for development. They voted not to allow a change that would have permitted on-lot septic within 1,000 feet of Mock Chunk Creek, Mock Chunk Lake. Obviously, a lot of residents have been out there voicing their concerns with any potential change because, one, it would put at risk on-lot septic systems, would put at risk a water source for the west side of Jim Thorpe. It obviously could have potentially impacted a quality fishery that we have on Mock Chunk Lake Park, the swimming, the boating. So, a premier outdoor recreational area in Carbon County. But I think even maybe more importantly to me than what the borough did was what the Board of Commissioners did today by actually purchasing the 45 plus acre Canic property, which actually paralleled Mock Chunk Lake Park. We had no idea how Borough Council was going to vote, and actually up until tonight, I think it was really in question. If it would not have been for the sale and maybe some of the public pressure, I think unfortunately that they would have let this go through. But thankfully, wiser heads and judgment prevailed. But Jim Thorpe did buy, Board of Commissioners did buy the Canic property today. So I feel very good knowing that we took positive action, didn't wait for the borough to act or not act. We were going to preserve that crown jewel of outdoor recreation that the county owns, Mock Chunk Lake Park. And speaking of Mock Chunk Lake Park, the summer season really is just a couple months away, Memorial Day weekend, 2 months and a couple weeks here. We are hiring lifeguards and seasonal maintenance staff. Let's make a special mention for the lifeguards. We've had significant increases in salary. We established a lifeguard supervisor, something that for years and years we have not had. They used to have it in name, but not formally established position, right? They'd bring someone in and say, you're the lifeguard supervisor. Well, I actually developed a duty description, job description for a lifeguard supervisor. So it's someone who's not simply going to manage the schedule of the lifeguards, but he or she will be responsible for the training, the continuing education, run exercises for the lifeguards during the season. Because what I had seen happening was you got your lifeguards come in Memorial Day weekend and they just continue to do their lifeguarding duties, but I've never seen anything for them to sustain their skill set other than observation, right? And keeping their eye on activities in the water. So I've never seen any continuing training, any attempt to take them to the next level of lifeguarding and the important job they have. So it is the vision of this lifeguard supervisor to take on a much greater role of responsibility, not simply of supervision, managing human resources, but enhancing the training and the capability of these lifeguards. And you see, we do have incidents from time to time, and we have to be prepared for that. And hopefully, if not this season, next season, we could actually do some coordinated training exercises with our first responders. But again, if you're interested in lifeguard positions at Mock Chunk Lake Park, that's over here, I think. Where's that one at? All right, just go ahead and call Mock Chunk Lake, or go on to carboncountypa.gov onto our employment portal, employment area. And we're talking about Mock Chunk Lake Park, Carbon County preserving more land. Obviously, we had more than 80% vote in favor of up to a $10 million bond to preserve open space agricultural land in Carbon County. Part of that fund will be utilized to help pay for the $238,000 Canic property that was just purchased. We're also applying for a grant that is expected to pay half of that. Then the other half, while it's coming out of the general fund today, once we actually do the bond issue, that the general fund will be reimbursed for that. And the article I was looking at in the Times News was referring to about a month or so ago, we passed a resolution that allows us to take money from our general fund, use that to purchase properties, preservation rights on property in the interim until we get the bond issue. So we can take money from the general fund, then reimburse it once we actually do the bond issue. And that was that. I did mention earlier when we first got started as part of my PSAs that we had a significant roofing project, HVAC project going on in the administration building, about a $1.3 million project, and that is going to be impeding some of the access in the upper lot for those who from time to time might have business up in the commissioner's office. So if you're just joining me, this is Carbon Matters live streaming, and I'm Carbon County Commissioner Chris Lukasiewicz. I want to thank you for the opportunity to engage with me this evening. If you have a comment, go ahead, stick it in the comment section. If I don't see it this evening, during the broadcast, of course, I'm going to go ahead and look at them tonight, and I will respond to them at that time. The Facebook comment section, for some reason, the feed on the windows that I use, or the window that I use, just doesn't seem to refresh all the time. So a comment will come in, and then it'll kind of get lost in the mix. So I appreciate your patience there. We're going to take about another 5 or 10 minutes before we jump into kind of a review or a primer for this forthcoming May's primary. Now, I'm going to be focusing on the elections at the county level, not going to talk municipality or school board directly, or at least specific to candidates. But I did want to make mention that the county is working through a process of finally, I think we're truly on the verge of having a single homeless women's shelter in Carbon County. We did have an agreement with Family Promise to do it. They had some internal challenges within their organization, which brought me to the conclusion that we had to change direction, change tack, and find another partner to bring this to reality. This has been lingering for well over, 3.5? It probably goes to March, April, probably March, might have even been February of 2019. So it's been, 4 years, and there was a commitment to have a single homeless women's shelter in Carbon County. It's still not there. So about 9-10 months ago, it might even have been a year, said, hey, let's change direction. Let's find a new partner. Brought that to reality. We took community development block grant COVID money, $163,000, which was already earmarked for a single homeless women's shelter, and shifted it to Peaceful Nights. Aggie came in, showed us a solid plan, had us go through her facility. We took a look at what was needed and what was viable to complete in a short to medium term, and redirected those funds. So I look forward to the very near future actually realizing that single homeless women's shelter in Carbon County, and I'm especially proud of that, and I'll be more proud of the actual accomplishment as that comes to fruition. Carbon County has hired an election director. Jennifer Ketledge will start next week as the director of elections. We also finished our interviews for a new assistant director. She accepted the position and is finalizing her pre-employment screening process, drug screen and things of that nature. And I suspect within probably a total of 2 to 3 weeks, we'll have our director, of course, will be in place. Our assistant director will be in place. We have a solid core member there, Jane, who's been there for seemingly forever to help them on board and learn many of the challenges of that position. Lisa Dart, the former director, who's now working down with Lancaster County's Department of Elections, brought her back as a consultant for a little while to help facilitate the transition of responsibility to Jennifer and her team. We also have, and I think it might still be open, 2 seasonal election worker positions. So this is really unique. I was able to convince my colleagues to say, hey, let's set them up for 2 90-day periods. Because what used to happen is you'd be a part-time employee, election workers, and you may work, 100 hours in May, and then again in November, right around the election, maybe a little bit earlier. But what we're doing, because of things like the mail-in ballots, 4,000 or 5,000 mail-in ballots that come in, everything is starting earlier. So these 2, what we're calling seasonal part-time election workers, they'll work 2 12-week periods. So there is definitely a niche group of people who would love to just work for 12 weeks twice a year, right? Just earn some pocket cash, right? So it would be from March 1st through 31 May would be that 1 12-week season. And then the second season would be from 1 September through 30 November. So you'd be working a total of 24 weeks a year, but you'd be able to do basically full-time hours. Now, this is part-time positions. You can't exceed X number of hours. I think it's 1,080 hours, more or less, right? So it's kind of 50% of what, a 40-hour a week would be equivalent to. But those positions are still available. So I would ask if you're interested in a part-time position, seasonal, March, April, May, September, October, November. There's a perfect opportunity to get, 35 plus hours a week in for those periods. All right. So we're filling up our election office, and again, I have all faith and confidence in the new team coming in, and Jane down there, and with Lisa's help, we'll be good to go here in Carbon County for the election coming up. Oh, Carbon County Election Board waits on commissioners. The fact is, with my announcement today, we should be solidifying the election board for the remainder of the year. As when county commissioners make the decision to run for re-election, they have to cede or turn over their seat on the election board because of obvious conflict of interest issues. So today we kind of finalize. We'll be bringing on, for the primary, we will be bringing on 2, call them per diem, because they will be paid about $100 a day when they have to do salary board activities, and it's normally a day, maybe 2 days a month, to be honest, max. So Rocky and Wayne, each of those name an individual to take their position. It goes to the judge appoints them, and we should be looking at a new salary board establishing here probably in the next 2 weeks or so. All right. I did see this, carbon pursuing delinquent fines, and that's really the sheriff's office is now doing what the clerk of courts led the way in Carbon County, hiring a third party to come and collect fines after the county has exhausted all other options, after we've done it, after state authorities have gone after them. The clerk of court's office has been very successful in this. What do? Don't reinvent the wheel, copy a good idea. The sheriff's office is now doing this. And a few months ago, through a completely different entity, our parking division has done that also. Because what we couldn't do, we were unable to collect on tickets that were issued outside of vehicles that were registered outside the state of Pennsylvania. Now, a lot of those, also, we had literally hundreds of backloaded tickets that would have to go to the magistrate's office. We had a conversation with the magistrate. They are full on. We asked them, hey, would you mind if, in lieu of sending individuals to the magistrate's office, let us just have a third party do the collection. So what happens is, you get a ticket, you don't pay it the next number of days, you get a warning letter sent out, and then boom, it's going to a third party collection agency, and that has been working well so far for us. Ooh, this one was the hiring fiasco. Yeah, this was Bruce's editorial. I don't know if you can see that one because the green screen, it's highlighted in yellow. Salary fiasco hits carbon government hard. Yeah, there was no salary fiasco. What happened was nearly 200 employees got wages that far exceeded anything they had received in recent history. But we had a handful of individuals, mid-level managers, who were unhappy with the insignificant increase that they received as a result of the salary study. Now, all those individuals had also been told that there would be, coming around mid-March time period, an opportunity to have those individuals who felt their compensation was not commensurate with their duties and responsibilities to be re-examined. And we asked them to have a little bit of tactical patience, and we would relook their salaries at that time based upon, their key functions, duties, responsibilities, level of authority, levels of responsibility, supervision, and that. I think we had 2 department heads who departed unsatisfied with the request to be patient. And I think we had one lower but senior, let me say, an employee with quite a few years who's also has said that part of the results of that salary study impacted their departure. And like I said, all those positions who had a credible a need for re-examine would have been re-examined starting in March. So while I regret the loss of those individuals, I also say, if you would have shown a little bit of patience, I think you would have been satisfied with the outcome. But again, the opportunity you took wherever you went or wherever you're going may have only been available at that moment. There's a reason for everything. No, in talking about salaries, DA came in asking for more funds for individuals in his office. The fact was, didn't have money in his budget. There was a slight budget error in the annual budget, overcounted the number of employees the DA actually had, so his budget was artificially inflated because of an error in the annual budget. We had to adjust our budget to reflect the accurate numbers, and that then reduced his budget to the point that the increases he was requesting that were above and beyond the salary board recommendations and the Board of Commissioners recommendations could not be supported by his existing budget. Therefore, can't do it. Don't have the money in your budget under salaries. It doesn't happen, and you can't pull it from other places to do that. All right. This is Carbon Matters live streaming. I'm Carbon County Commissioner Chris Lukasevich. We got about 15 minutes or so left. And I'm going to jump into what I'm calling my primer for the primary. And I'm going to review the slate of candidates for county level offices. And I think, though, as I go through the candidates, I think the one thing we're going to see is, unfortunately, the lack of candidates. And I think 3 items probably hurt our democracy more than anything else. And one would be, let me call it, our greatest threats to democracy and to the service that our county residents deserve. And I think that would be uninformed voters voting. So if you don't know the issues, you don't listen to Carbon Matters live stream, you don't read the Times News, you don't watch the Blu-rays, you don't watch the live streams of the county or even your municipality meetings. If you're uninformed and you go to the polls and you're just simply filling in a dot because he or she is of your same party, I mean, that is a threat to democracy. I also think a lack of competition when it comes to candidates. When candidates, or existing elected officials aren't challenged on a regular basis, and that is in their election year, right? That's kind of the tool that is used as part of the check and balance, right? You're not doing a good job, hopefully you will get voted out. You're doing a good job, and there's not a better candidate out there, you will be retained in your position. And we're going to talk about the lack of candidates. And I think the unfortunate reality here in Carbon County, we're seeing less and less candidates coming out. And then number 3 are career politicians. I'll tell you what, for commissioners or row officers, 2 terms, you're done. You need to go. Time to get new blood, new ideas. If you want to be a technocrat, go to a home rule county, right? And you can spend 40 years in a position as a prothonotary, a recorder of deeds, whatever it is. But more than 8 years, I think you should really be moving on. And again, I'm talking at county level because we have a 4-year terms. And it is public service, and I don't think the Founding Fathers ever expect us to have career politicians. And again, that ties back into if there aren't candidates running against existing elected officials, they're more likely to continue to hang out. So the big 3 threats: uninformed voters voting, lack of competition when it comes to elections, too few candidates, and then finally, career politicians. So let's go ahead and look at it. I have this fancy dancy chart I made up. I thought it was going to be all filled, but it's not. I'm going to start with the coroner, running unopposed. Bob Miller actually does a really good job. I like Bob a lot, have no complaints or issues with the coroner. Too many calls, unfortunately. Too many of those calls could be suicide or drug related. But Bob is running unopposed. Bob is a Democrat. The district attorney, Mike Greek. I think he's doing a solid job as a DA. Unfortunately, I don't like the fact that he disparages a 34-year military veteran. Obviously, he does it in private. He doesn't do it, face to face. I don't think he has the guts to do that. But again, that talks to the character of an individual when you'll talk behind someone's back about his military career, but don't have the guts to say it to his face. But again, I think he's doing a good job as DA. I would never have a beer with him. Again, unfortunate he's being unopposed, because everyone should be challenged every re-election or every election. All right, so let's go ahead and jump to another unopposed. Donna Gentile, I think, doing a solid job as the recorder of deeds. She's unopposed. She's running as a Republican. I will mention this. This is my assessment of recorder of deeds. If you don't want to have to deal with the courts, you don't want to be subservient to the courts, and you don't want to be subservient totally to the Board of Commissioners because of what's referred to as your hire, fire, manage your office rights, 1620 rights, the recorder of deeds is the position for you. All right, because you don't work for the commissioners, and you don't work for the judge, so you really can run your office with a lot of independence, far more than any other office in county government, right? So if someone's thinking of running for that position in the future, love to talk to you about it from a perspective of looking at the structure of a county code county versus a home rule county, and why this could be a great position if you like autonomy, because it's about the most autonomous position of an elected officer that there is, and it's a 9-to-5 job, right? The issues start at 8:30, they end at 4:30. You can leave them all at the door, right? So think about that for the next one. But Donna's doing a solid job. She'll be running on the Republican ticket unopposed. But again, that's unfortunate. Even the best of us should be challenged on a regular basis. The Prothonotary office, Kayla, doing a solid job there. Kayla will be running unopposed. I have a few issues with her utilization or non-utilization of automation, her automation fund and stuff like that. But again, I think Kayla's doing a solid job. But again, I don't think any candidate should be running unopposed. And I think it's sad to see that, again, we now have the DA, the coroner, recorder of deeds, and Prothonotary, all Republicans. 3 Republicans and 1 Democrat running unopposed. I think there might be some hesitation by Democrats running because of the significant change over the past, 8 years, when it comes to now the Republicans have a significant majority. So it's extremely difficult for a Democrat to win a seat and to beat a Republican who's now an incumbent. All right, so let's go to the sheriff's race. 3 Republicans. We have Dan Ziegler, who's the current sheriff. Recall that when Sheriff Tony Harvilla retired, he assumed that position. After X number of days, no appointment was made by the governor. The governor just kind of played out the clock, and therefore he, by default, became from the acting sheriff to the sheriff. That's Sheriff Dan Ziegler. Think he's doing a fine job for what I can see. Don't appreciate an individual who tells a sergeant, deputy sheriff, to go down and gives her $20 to go collect copies of petitions of his opposition. I think that's inappropriate use of a county employee, a county car, county funds, taxpayer funds. I observed that. I think it was Wednesday morning. So that is a problem. And again, I'm going to call them like I see them. I'm going to always be transparent and tell you what I see and what I observed. You want more details? Give me a call. I'll talk to you about what I observed and the photos I have of that taking place. Then you have Richard Branch, who's actually a deputy sheriff right now, if I recall correctly. He's been a Carbon County deputy sheriff now for 6 months. Richard has 38 years of service, did study criminal justice, comes out of the Patrol Division and Canine Section of East Brunswick Police Department in New Jersey. Seems to have a solid background in policing. So I would say definitely give a look to Richard as a candidate. Then you have, and Richard's from out in Penn Forest Township. Then you have Dan McLean. He's from Lehighton. Tried to do a little research on Dan. Really couldn't get much. Didn't see an announcement in the Times News. Looked at his social media. Not much there. So I'm going to have to put that on you all to go ahead and check that out. So if you're just joining me, I got about 10 more minutes, running a little bit behind. But that occurs from time to time. I'm trying to slow down the pace a little bit here and not be constrained by the clock, but rather allow content to drive the conversation. I'm Carbon County Commissioner Chris Lukasiewicz. Thank you so much for joining me. Well, in just starting our 5th year of Carbon Matters live streaming. It was February, well over 4 years ago when we got started with Carbon Matters live stream. So let's look at another race that has some competition. But remember, all 3 of those sheriff candidates are Republicans. So that's going to be interesting. And I do hope that Blue Ridge, what they had done in the past, when there was a competitive sheriff and commissioner's race, they had debates both for the sheriffs and commissioners on the same night. So I hope they do the same thing this year. Now we're going to talk about the controller's office. From Jim Thorpe seeking the nomination of her party for controller, Kayla Herman. And what I'm glad to see is, the controller is the auditor of the county primarily. Is also the president or the chair of the retirement board. But I think that auditor capacity, ensuring that all the checks and balances are in place, is so important. So it was good to see Kayla, who's a graduate of Jim Thorpe High School, went L-Tri-C and then Wilkes University. Attained her degree in business in 2008 and has been working for RFO for 15 years. So seems to be a pretty solid candidate on paper. So that's Kayla Herman from Jim Thorpe. And she's running against, or vice versa, a solid Democrat candidate, Sam Lux from Lehighton. Sam graduated from Westchester University with a degree in finance, worked for J.P. Morgan Chase. He's actually been doing some long-term budgeting solutions at PFM, Public Financial Management. Okay, no, that sounds good. I think Sam also was doing some work with the Jim Thorpe High School tennis team and doing some substitute teaching. So Sam's another solid candidate. So that's the type of races, that is the type of candidates we need to have right here, all right? I'm trying to get them right on the camera, right? Kayla and Sam, that should be a solid race. If you're voting on candidates who have the appropriate skills and background for the position, you got them here, right? You definitely have them here in this race. So that was really good to see. All right. So let's go ahead. Let's turn it to the last race, the race which is of most interest to me. That's the commissioner's race. So as of right now, and I say as of right now because 7 March, the petition period finished. There's a short period where those petitions could be challenged, right? The public opponents of individuals who have filed petitions could come in and challenge signatures and stuff. You need to have about a minimum of 100 verified voter in Carbon County of your party signatures on those petitions. But right now there's 4 candidates. And I also say right now because from March 8th through August 1, it is the petition period, and they're really calling their papers, right, for the non-major party candidates, such as independents and all those other, the Green Party, right, libertarians, all those minor party candidates have an opportunity. And in this particular race, this particular year, there's a certain percentage of signatures required based upon the last municipal election. So for example, for the commissioner race, if an individual, not a Democrat or a Republican, would like to get on the ticket for the November general election, right, they would have to have 219 signatures from voters in Carbon County, and they can be of any party: Democrat, Republican, Socialist, Libertarian, Independent Party, or Independence Party. You know, there's a multitude of parties. So again, this is the slate as of today. These candidates are seeking their party's nomination to be on the November ballot. So that's why you only have the major parties who are represented in the primary. Now, you know, some individuals, you know, third-party candidates, quote unquote, tend not to do very well. But I would challenge one's assumption if they're saying a third-party candidate can't win in Carbon County. I believe the right candidate can. All right, but let me tell you what we have so far. So on the Democratic side, we have Rocky Arner, who's the current county commissioner Democrat, and then Jeff Schneider from Palmerton. Jeff, I don't know how long he's been in the county. Nice guy. If you watch any of the commissioners meeting, you'll see a tall gentleman normally seated on the right side as you're looking at the public seating area. He'll normally be sitting about 3 or 4 rows back. He attends and has been for quite a while, been attending many of the commissioners' meetings. So he's definitely put in his time in the seat, at least in the public seating area of commissioners' meeting, to get a sense of what's going on. So he's kind of Rocky's running partner. Seems like a good guy, electrician, if I recall. I don't know his background in any depth. I haven't seen a public announcement from Jeff. I might have missed that somewhere in the paper. So right now, on the Republican side, what we have is Wayne and Mike Sifranco. Wow, this is hard. Again, you know, I say 3 of the threats to solid democracy, right, and good representation is a career politician. You know, Wayne's a career politician. I think it's selfish not to move out of the way and let opportunities for other individuals to come forth and put their ring in the hat. So what probably happened is there are probably a few people who wanted to run, but the fact that Wayne announced that he was going to run, I suspect they may have decided not to, because the chances tend to be against them running against an incumbent of so many years. And it's unfortunate because, again, I believe in term limits. And I'm going to come out with other significant issues I have with Wayne. I will tell you that I guess his running mate is Mike Sifranco, the mayor, existing mayor, current mayor of Jim Thorpe. I saw he was already doing some politicking at the borough council meeting the last couple of weeks. I could kind of see a change in how he's speaking, and kind of speaking more about particular issues where he would not have 2 months ago wouldn't have said a word, and now he's talking up. So I can see going into campaign mode there. It's real easy to see once you are a politician, right? You know, you can't, it's real easy to spot. So Wayne and Mike as the Republicans. So this is a non-competitive race, right? So Mike and Wayne are going to advance unchallenged to the general election. So will Rocky and Jeff, because you go and you vote for two, right? So all four of those will advance into the general election without any expense. I mean, the consultants out of Harrisburg that Wayne and Mike had hired to help them run their campaign, because they were so concerned that I was running in the primary, they had to go hire some, you know, big city consultant firm to help them try to run their campaign to build a strategy and a plan against my potential run. I guess, you know, they won't have to expend those funds here, at least in the primary. I'm going to tell you a story about Mike Sifranco. And again, I call him like I see him. I'm transparent. I tell you the truth. You know, and I could simply say, go to the election office, do a right to know, and ask for the nomination petitions for Sidney Burnett and Tyra Boney when they ran for clerk of courts a year or so ago. All right? Ask for those petitions. Tell me if you don't see Mike Sifranco's name on both petitions. You know and I know you can only sign one petition. So Mike Sifranco came to my driveway, asked me to sign his ballot or his petition for mayor. I said, sure, you know, no problem. I said, you know what, my wife and daughter will also sign. I said, by the way, would you mind signing Tyra's? No, absolutely not. She's a solid candidate. Boom, boom, boom. So he goes ahead and signs Tyra Boney's petition. Then either before or after, he goes and signs Sidney Burnett's petition. So he was either deceiving me or he was deceiving Sidney Burnett. That tells you more about a person's character than I could express using 1,000 words. So again, not making an accusation, I'm stating a fact. And as soon as I saw that, I said, that's a person I don't trust. You know, call him like I see him. I'm Chris Lukasevich. You may not like where I stand, but you'll always know where I stand. All right, so that is it. I'm getting ready to wrap it up right here. This is Carbon Matters live streaming. Like I said, unfortunately, not a lot of competition out there when it comes to the races. And in reality, the only competitive race we have in the primary is the sheriff race with 3 Republicans. Every other candidate at the county level is advancing onto the November election. Keep in mind, though, dark horse might come out for the commissioner's race between now and 1 August. You just never know what may occur. I obviously did not file petitions for the nomination. On 7 March, I decided to fulfill the strategy, the plan that I had in place to change my party affiliation to non-affiliated on the day of submission of petition. That gives me full flexibility and independence of action to implement a challenge in November to any office. All I have to do is secure 219 signatures and I could run for coroner, controller, recorder of deeds, prothonotary, sheriff, commissioner, right? The opportunities are endless for me. But again, look, you know, I've had a plan for well over 3 years now, since just after January 6, 2020, when I took office, and that's the plan I'm going to follow, regardless if that's choose to run at the county level or any other ambitions I may or may not have in the political realm. I'm only keeping everything tight for strategic reasons. But come by 1 August, you'll fully know my intent and what I plan to do in regards to politics in county government or beyond. But again, thank you for joining me. Thank you for doing your best to be informed voters. I'm Carbon County Commissioner Chris Lukasiewicz. Want to remind you, the county offices in the administration building tomorrow will be closed for further water mitigation. Those offices are the Recorder of Deeds, Tax Claim, Tax Assessment, GIS, the Treasurer, the Controller. For all intent and purposes, the Commissioner's office also. The majority of staff will be gone because of all the noise, the work that's going on as part of the mitigation that's taken place. So thanks in advance for your patience. I apologize if there is any inconvenience caused by this. I want to thank my unofficial sponsors of Carbon Matters live streaming. Obviously, after I shower or bathe, Maggie's always saying, "How do you smell so good?" Well, it's the soap I use, right? It's Duke Cannon soap, and that's up above my left shoulder there. Some of the largest bars of soap you'll ever see, bigger than the old ivory bar soap bars growing up. Duke Cannon. Of course, the official coffee of C4, Chris Carbon County Commissioner, is Cafe Ruiz out of Panama. Love the Ruiz family. Love their coffee. And finally, while I don't drink energy drinks, if I did drink an energy drink, it of course would be C4. So I encourage you, you can get it at Turkey Hill. I've never had a sip, but just by the name, I know it would be my beverage of choice if I was a Red Bull drinker or some similar energy drink. So again, Carbon County Commissioner Chris Lukasiewicz, thank you for joining me. Have a wonderful night. I'm going to be signing off here, and I'll be reviewing any comments that we have. And again, don't feel any hesitation in calling me at 570-503-6780. Email me at clukasiewicz@carboncounty.net, or call the office other than tomorrow because we don't have a direct line, 570-325-3611. But you can get a hold of me on my cell phone, 570-503-6780. Have a great night.
Where the days are short and the nights are long, where they walk and I walk, they twist and I'll twist, they shimmy and I'll shimmy, they fly and I'll fly. Well, they're out there having fun in that one California sun. Well, I'm going out west, out on the coast, where the California girls are really the most, where they walk and I'll walk, they twist and I'll twist, they shimmy and I'll shimmy, they fly and I'll fly. Well, they're out there having fun in that one California sun. Frisky in old Frisco, a pretty little chick wherever you go.